Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I'm here to give my review of episode 26 of DS. What an episode it is. The West Wing, we keep getting teases, and really, it's a good way to tease it. Not just with this episode. We've seen a couple episodes ago, we've seen episodes where we've seen the door of the West Wing. And by the way, this isn't going to be the only episode that teases the West Wing, letting you know that a trip to the West Wing is a coming. Obviously, for reasons that I'll mention later in this episode. It's going to be a bit of a spoiler. Look, yes, there are going to be spoilers. Obviously, you guys should know what to expect, and that's sort of how we start this episode. That David is coming out of the West Wing with Victoria Winter's letter. Remember, Victoria Winters had received a letter a couple episodes ago. Questions were asked about that letter. Questions were answered that were completely full of shit about that letter. We can lie to Victoria because, well, we can. I mean, that's sort of the family motto right now. I mean, if we can get away with lying to Victoria, you best believe they're going to get away with lying to Victoria Winters. Narrated by Alexandra Mulkey Isles, written by Art Wallace, directed by Leila Swift. So you see David coming out of the West Wing in this episode. He's got Victoria Winters' letter from the Hammond Foundling home. By the end of the previous episode, Victoria, who was looking for this letter, and she figured David took it, her suspicions were correct, and her suspicions were confirmed in this episode. But not just about the letter. Really, they were confirmed by the end of last episode, but we're sort of, in this episode, what they do is, here comes the confrontation. And it's beautiful that Dark Shadows can take a subject matter like the bleeder valve and stretch it this far, because by the end of the previous episode, two episodes ago, Victoria Winters began to suspect David. By the end of 2 episodes ago, by the end of last episode, and throughout the end of that episode, she was sort of questioning, could David be the one responsible? And by the end of episode 25, it was confirmed to her that in David's top drawer was the bleeder valve of his dad's master brake cylinder. David, you are the next Michael Myers. I mean, what? Really, you would be the first. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Sadistic kid, though. David Hennessy, like I said, he comes out of the West Wing with Vicky's letter. And who's there to run interference? Not Elizabeth. Here's Victoria Winters. David, how could you? How could you do it? Look, there's always great interaction between the characters of this show. Art Wallace wrote beautiful dialogue and scripts. And Leila Swift, the way she directs this episode is really, really well done. Again, I gotta give credit to Dan Curtis Productions. The way they produce these episodes, they're really good. But Leila Swift's direction deserves a lot of credit, too. You don't get a fight necessarily. You don't get them trading blows. I mean, Vicky and David. But you get a bit of a wrestling match in here between an aggressive child and a adult. And they do this really well. The choreography of this sort of scuffle is really well done. I give credit to both actor and actress. Really well done. Just a great job. And the wrestling match takes place in Vicky's room. It sort of somewhat starts off in the hallway because David wants the valve back and he's trying to get it out of Vicky's hands. Vicky gets to her room. She shuts the door, tries to shut the door. David doesn't let her. He bursts into her room. And again, there's a bit of a scuffle. There's a bit of a wrestling match in Vicky's room. Vicky shrugs him off, gets the bleeder valve locked in a drawer of in Vicky's room. There's a small lock that Vicky has. Um, this isn't going to be the only lock to that drawer. I'm going to spoil that here because we're going to find out in an episode anyway. David, I want that valve. I mean, it's heavy. Noir, most people think noir is light and shadows. It's not just light and shadows. Noir is more the dialogue. It's more the conversation of the adult language that people use. And you do get that a lot in Dark Shadows. You get a lot of noir. And sort of there's underlying meaning too. Though David's not threatening Victoria, his stare and sort of menacing look at her sort of is. There's no, oh, I'm going to kill you or I'm going to, push you off with it. So, because you don't need that with Dark Shadows. All you need the characters to do is give a look. And that's exactly what happens with this episode with David and Victoria. David gives Victoria this look like, I want to kill you, though he does not say it, but he does not need to. You don't need a kid to say, I want to kill you. You just have to have the look, and Dark Shadows nails that beautifully. Vicky locks David out of her room. She tricks him. She goes, well, let me show you where I found the bleeder valve. He goes first. She follows behind him, and as soon as he gets out the hallway, she shuts her bedroom door and locks him out. You lied to me. You tricked me. He beats on the door like a maniac. Further cementing David is really having a breakdown. And then we get the sheriff's office or constable/sheriff's office. I love this set design. Really well done. It looks great. You got some wanted poster. You got a wanted poster on the wall. You got calendars. You got looks like a crime scene photo. Roger walks in. By the way, Louis Edmonds' character, his hand is still like he's not really moving it, though it's not in a sling. He's not moving it. I do wonder, because I'd like to believe Louis Edmonds moved his hand between takes so his hand didn't get stiff and his muscles didn't get stiff. Because when you have like a problem with your hand and your arm and your shoulders, everyone's first reaction is to not move it. But my doctor once told me if you move it, it'll just tense up your muscle and it'll cause more problems. You need to sort of stretch your muscles in order to build them back up. So I'm wondering if Louis Edmonds moved his arm, like when they did takes or they just did rehearsals, he kept moving his arm to have blood flow. Because there's just a long period here of Louis Edmonds not moving his left arm. That's why I ask. If anybody knows, please hit me up. I'd love to know. I don't. Look, I've watched this episode, but there's moments where Louis Edmonds is just not moving his left arm too much because it's supposed to be injured. You see the bandage on Louis Edmonds' forehead still, so he's still banged up from the car accident. He's going to be for a bit. So he walks into the sheriff's office and he says, why haven't you made an arrest? Why haven't you arrested Burke Devlin? And, Roger basically tells Constable Jonas Carter that, maybe people think you've grown tired of your job. Maybe there'll be a new sheriff elected. It is not quite election season, Roger. But guess what? That's I like Constable Jonas Carter's reaction. He goes, you go up and you tell that family that I will move accordingly. I will act accordingly to the law. And also, what I love about this little dialogue exchange too that you get, because there is a brief scene where they do a small cutback to Collinwood, and Vicky tells David Hennessy's character, David Collins, that Roger is coming back. Your father will be back. he will be coming back anytime soon now. Well, no, not really. So, and then they cut right back to the sheriff's office, which I like. I mean, it's really good dialogue, and I love Constable Jonas Carter going around Roger, and because Roger goes, well, why don't you just search Devlin's room? Why? What do you think we'd find? And Roger says the bleeder valve. Constable Jonas Carter tells him, he goes, anybody who'd be holding on to that valve would be either foolish or psychotic, and I don't think Burke Devlin's either. And Lewis Edmonds is. Roger Collins looks at him. Some people might be asking, if you've never watched Dark Shadows and you're watching it for the first time and you're on episode 26 and maybe you've not been paying attention, because I can understand some people not. Why Roger sort of doesn't seem to know Jonas as well as Liz does, even though Jonas Carter was at the trial and stuff. Remember, Roger's only been back in town for a month, and maybe so there is that. Just saying. And again, just because basically he wants the same result. Roger wants the same result as the manslaughter trial. He just wants Burke back behind bars. He just wants Burke out of his hair. And he thinks Burke will start trouble and find out the real truth. That's really why Roger Collins wants Burke gone. But Burke has money, he has lawyers, and that's something Lewis Edmonds' Roger Collins brings up. David Collins has got his jacket on. He is running across the stairwell, and he's running down the steps. He's going toward the door, and Liz grabs him, says, "Where are you going?" And he says about how she's mean. Vicky hurt him, and she's like, "Are you mean Miss Winters?" Basically, what you have going on here is a lot of foreshadowing. And what I mean by that is, notice what David Collins was really doing. He wasn't going for Liz. He really was going for the door. He was going to run away because he knew the truth was about to be exposed anyway. And there's nothing he can do. I mean, this is a good, really foreshadowing moment. Though David Collins doesn't run away in this exact episode, it's good foreshadowing for the next episode, for an episode to come. Because what happens by the end of this episode, and I'll get into that here in a moment. David says that Vicky will blame his father's accident on him, that Vicky will blame it on David. That's what David tells Liz. And finally, when Victoria exits her room, she opens it, comes downstairs too, comes to the drawing room door, and she goes, "Well, there's where you ran off to." And David says she'll tell lies. Victoria says, "I don't think so." And David leaves the room saying she won't believe you. And Vicky, and Liz goes, "Okay." As Elizabeth is closing the drawing room doors and turns around, we see a cutaway. Great cutaway. Again, great production going on here in these early episodes of DS. And the cutaway goes right back to the sheriff's office. And guess who's got a search warrant? It's Constable Jonas Carter. He's got a search warrant. And no, he's not going to search the cannery. He's going to search Burke Devlin's room. Not quite in this episode, but we are going to get that exact moment. We're going to get the search of a lifetime, in a way. Constable Carter, by the way, could not finish his sandwich. He hates mustard on ham, I guess, on rye. He drinks coffee and then he drinks water later on. Roger wants that warrant served right away, but so he's not even happy that he got a warrant. Though that warrant wasn't enough in Roger's mind. And, Constable Carter, who is sort of feeling the pressure of the people who run the town, Collins family, um, does make is making more inquiries about Burke. Now he was already making inquiries about Burke Devlin, but he's making even more. Um, back in the Roger leaves obviously. So back in the drawing room, David is eavesdropping or trying to. He's got his ear to the door of the drawing room because the door is shut, and he's trying to listen to the conversation between Elizabeth and Victoria. And Victoria says, "Mrs. Stoddard, you know how you think you know who did the accident?" She goes, and she says, "David said you'd blame that on him." And she goes, "I know this isn't easy." She goes, "You think it's easy for me?" And I love Victoria's dialogue here, because Victoria, you know, Liz says they're gonna search, they're gonna try to find the valve in Burke's room. She goes, "They won't find it," and Liz says, "Why?" She goes, "Because I found it in David's room." And Liz is like, her eyes go big, and she's like, "Why? Why would he have it?" She goes, "Why did you think Burke had it?" She goes, "No, no, no, I can't believe that." This is great acting by both Alexandra and Joan Bennett, obviously. Joan doing the stuttering because of the shock factor of little David trying to murder her son, trying to murder her own father. And that's what they're trying to get across. And that's exactly what they get across with this episode. You have the truth being dropped and the reaction to the truth. Because though Liz doesn't want to believe it, the reaction of the I can't believe it is I sort of can believe it. There's though she's gonna yell at Victoria in coming episodes and doubt her, deep down Liz knows the truth. Deep down Liz knows it was David. That she knows what the tension was between father and son, or is. So there's a small, again, the sheriff, he's still trying to make inquiry phone calls. Victoria though does offer to take Liz where she has the bleeder valve. She'll show you she has it, proving that David has it. So they walk up to Victoria's room. Oh, by the way, in the meantime, before all this, as a call is made, David listens in on the phone that is out in the hallway, and he hangs up as Liz is hanging up. Right after Liz hangs up, but after all that, David leaves. We don't see David anymore, and they're gonna go out to the drawing room and go upstairs, which Victoria and Elizabeth do. They go to Victoria's room, and you know what's coming. If you've seen this episode, Victoria unlocks her thing, unlocks the dresser drawer, the small dresser drawer, and yeah, there's no bleeder valve in there. She goes, "It's gone," and then you get the ominous music, and that's the end of the episode. Again, it's a really fun episode. I really, really enjoy the tension between David Collins and Victoria Winters, David Hennessy and Alexander Mulkey's character. Again, great choreography in the sort of little wrestling match you get here. the fight for the bleeder valve, if you will. Really good choreography. Because again, how do you choreograph a wrestling match between a kid and a female adult? Because again, that could be very risky, and they don't make it too risky here. They keep it very clean. There's no grabbing of any kind of parts, which is smart. They don't try to make it that. They just try to. They do a good job of focusing on Victoria's hands and David trying to get the valve out of her hands. And again, it's a really great job on the choreography. It's something I enjoy very much. Because again, it's something that could go really wrong if done improper. But it doesn't. It goes absolutely right. Victoria still retains the bleeder valve. She does drop it briefly, but she gets it back before David can. And does end up locking it. But David has a plan B, and he executes that plan B. His plan B does suck, by the way, because he's still... Well, you're going to find out in episode 27 why I say this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really enjoy these. These are just a lot of fun to go back and rewatch and do. Uh, I tell you my favorite scene in this, other than the wrestling match, is where Constable Jonas Carter tells Roger that, you better. He doesn't believe Burke would be holding on to the Bleed Valve because whoever wouldn't be in their right mind. It gives you a peek further into David's psych, sort of the psychiatric help he may need. Because David's a twisted kid, you know. So, and by the end of this bleeder valve case, there are going to be a lot of people who realize it. But you'll see what I mean later on, guys. I hope you enjoy this episode. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you for episode 27.